So today we're going to talk about something that sounds, a little technical, ISO 14040. But stick with me, because this is all about uncovering the complete environmental story of the products we use every single day. We're going to pull back the curtain and see what's really going on. I mean, think about it. Your phone, your coffee cup, the shoes you're wearing, what's their true environmental cost? It's easy to think about the factory or what happens when you throw it away, but that's really just one chapter in a much, much bigger story. To get that whole story, you need a special kind of tool. It's called a life cycle assessment, or LCA. Honestly, the best way to think about it is like a nutritional label, but for a product's environmental health. It's a systematic way to look at the impacts across all the stages of its life, from the very beginning to the very end, cradle to grave, as they say. Now, for any of these labels to actually be useful, everyone needs to be playing by the same set of rules, right? You can't have one company measuring things one way and another company doing it completely differently. And that is exactly why we have ISO 1440. It's the international rulebook, the common language that makes sure every LCA is credible and trustworthy. So, what are these rules of the game? Well, ISO 1440 is really built on four foundational principles. These are the things that guarantee every assessment is reliable, and most importantly, tells the whole truth. The first principle, and you could argue it's the most important, is the life cycle perspective. Instead of that super narrow view that only looks at, say, what comes out of the factory chimney, an LCA forces you to take a holistic view. You have to consider everything: where the raw materials came from, the production, the distribution, how you actually use the product, and what happens when you're done with it. This is so important because it stops companies from just shifting the problem around. Like making a factory cleaner but using 30 materials from somewhere else. The second principle is that the whole thing has to be quantifiable. This isn't about what feels more eco-friendly. It's all about what the data tells us. The entire process has to be grounded in objective, measurable facts. And what are we measuring exactly? Well, we're talking about hard numbers on things like greenhouse gas emissions, how much water is being used, how quickly we're depleting resources, and even the potential impacts on our health and on entire ecosystems. This is what allows for a real, honest-to-goodness, apples-to-apples comparison between different options. Principle number 3 is all about transparency. And this is so critical for building trust. It just means that every piece of data, every single assumption you make, and every calculation has to be documented and open for anyone to see. No secret ingredients, no black boxes allowed. You gotta show your work. And finally, the fourth principle is realizing that an LCA isn't a one-and-done report that you just file away. It's meant to be an iterative process. It's a living thing. As new technology comes out or we get better data, the assessment should be updated. It's a tool for continuous improvement, not a final grade. Okay, so we've got the why. Those are the four big principles. Now let's dive into the how. How is one of these things actually done? Well, ISO 14040 also lays out a really clear 4-phase methodology. It's basically a 4-step journey. You start with defining your goal and scope, what are we studying and why? Then comes the inventory analysis, which is the really heavy lifting of collecting all the data on inputs and outputs. After that, the impact assessment takes all that raw data and translates it into actual environmental impacts. And finally, you get to the interpretation, which is where you make sense of it all and figure out what to do next. So let's connect all these dots. Why does a technical document like this actually matter in the real world? This is where it stops being just a framework and becomes a really powerful tool for change. And the payoff here is huge. Think about a company making electric kettles. They might assume their factory has the biggest footprint, but a proper LCA could show that the real impact is all the electricity customers use over the kettle's lifetime. With that one piece of data, they can go back and redesign it to be way more energy efficient. That cuts the carbon footprint and saves customers money. That's the power of this standard in action. And really, this brings us to the big takeaway. ISO 1440 gives us the tools to see and understand the complete story of a product, from its very birth to its final grave. It makes the invisible visible. So the real question it leaves us with is this: now that we can actually measure a product's full story, what will we choose to change? So today,